The economic future of the United States of America isn't cinched. None can see the future with certainty except God, for whom all time is present. However, the economy of the United States, like that of all geographic regions of Earth, have tended to increase output over time. With few exceptions, productivity increases and environmental health decreases over the course of human history. Nations and civilizations rise and fall, yet geographic regions tend to be more fruitful as people and technology multiply. That historical trend itself is not guaranteed, though. If globalists one day decide that some other nation would be a better place to centralize, as Constantine once shifted the Roman Empire's capital east to a new city, the majority of Americans that would be rather politically ineffective could have little to say about it if they cared to. The United States has a blessed past in being sparsely populated with rich natural resources. Like a fire given a dry forest, the economy inevitably grew over time, as did the population. The conditions were natural, yet the conditions have changed significantly since the end of the Cold War in January 1989. The Civil War was an effort of the oligarchic southern states to break free from the United States. Continuing southern inclusion after the war was forced. In the future, new reasons to end the United States of America may arise from actually morally acceptable causes. Likely causes are vast public debt and the concentration of wealth and power, negating democracy, though there are other reasons for a politically bankrupt dissolution of the country. The historian Arnold Toynbee, who wrote a study of civilization, noted that all prior civilizations, except for 2 or 3, no longer existed. The factors that make the United States what it was may no longer exist in the years ahead. The United States, like an old soldier, may fade away to be replaced by an immoral majority loyal to post-national, post-rational ideals. Maybe a future majority of Hispanics may decide to annex it to old Mexico, perhaps as a state of global plutocrats. Maybe oligarchs might change its name to honor a future civil rights-controlled dictator. The nation will fade away. States, as a term itself, representing pluralism, may seem subversive to a one-nation Earth civilization leadership cadre and be replaced with some harmless name like Opsland or Section 3000. Already cell phones and internet have subverted national boundaries as the rich do what they can to avoid taxes and business with transnational gimmicks. Things that held the United States together before personal computers were invented and fielded in large numbers, and the end of taxes sufficient to stop automatic reinforcing concentration of wealth are fading away. The United States, after the Revolution, was spared kings and dictators. Democracy has been the fact in the past. Generals that fought in war, such as Washington and Jackson, became presidents. Rather ordinary men like Lincoln and Grant, who was a lieutenant, who actually resigned from the Army before the Civil War, responded to the call of the age and rose to greatness. Homesteading allowed a man to work with his hands and build a place he could call his own without much financial trouble. Manufacturing could be done in the nation itself. It soon became a world leader at manufacturing and transportation. Opportunities existed in the United States in a variety of ways. The United States was a do-it-yourself nation with a democracy that would find that in the Spanish-American War, recruiting offices swamped the first-day volunteers were called to serve in the Army. Today, little of the heritage remains. Production of new inventions and innovations requires a convoluted and costly patent process that may cost millions annually to defend just for one patent. Manufacturing at a competitive price must be done in China or Mexico overseas, generally adding to costs and difficulty of actually making a profit on modest invention. Homesteading is long dead. It perished in Alaska by the 1990s, where some land in the late 1980s at least was still available. Banking and business and global and great advantages go to concentrated wealth and power. Wealth trickles up. While the tax rate was at 90% on the top class of Americans, Americans prospered in the 20th century, right through the 1960s. As the tax rate was cut, the difference between rich and poor increased. I believe it was recently reported that the middle class is no longer a statistical majority in the nation. Like Mexico, wealth is being concentrated at the top. And with so much money, able to buy and network so many things, the company store becomes a fact of life where they own everything virtually, and new businesses need to resemble servo units of that establishment. The richest 10% take away 90% of the annual income of the nation every year. That is runaway wealth and power. With such extreme imbalance, the United States may evolve into being a democracy in name only. The media is a bought and paid for tool of the 1%. Two presidential candidates, Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, if they were not derriere kissers of that establishment, promising more tax cuts, wouldn't even be in the running. They wouldn't be allowed to run by the establishment. The United States has no guarantee that it will continue to exist as a somewhat egalitarian society, with the differences in earnings between the most wealthy, the middle class, and the poor not being very great. Environmental reports indicate that the low latitudes are desiccating and food production will shift north without great desalination canals such as along the Mexican border and new freshwater production in deserts. And perhaps some of the water released could cool off, create more rainfall, and cool off the sky a little bit. The inventor of the Gaia hypothesis, James Lovelock, said that the American Midwest may be a desert in 200 years. The United States, like the ancient Roman Empire, has no guarantee that it will continue to exist or prosper. With the right environmental and social reason, it could improve its prospects. As things stand, it doesn't look terribly sound. The next global derivatives and mortgage banking swindle scheme invented at MIT, where the Monte Carlo algorithm was hatched, or academia elsewhere transferred to Wall Street, may bring the dollar crashing down too. There have been so many hundreds of billions and even trillions of loose dollars made up by the Federal Reserve in recent times to keep the economy going, and the rich richer, that one suspects that some sort of radical inflationary phenomena may occur at some point. When the poor and middle class lost homes during the 2008-2009 economic crisis, the rich corporate world eventually bought up most of those homes with free Federal Reserve zero-interest loans transferring wealth upward again. When ordinary nations like Argentina and Mexico cannot pay their foreign and public debts, they cannot just run the electronic currency presses and make more cash without hyperinflation. Euro nations no longer even have the option of printing their own dollars or their own money. The U.S.A., as the world's leading financial power, has been able to get away with increasing money supply in recent years from thin air. The dollar value is tied to nothing except American power, prestige, and the impractical choice of crashing a currency where so many abroad are invested in the currency. No guarantees exist that the dollar will always be regarded as sound by investors. If the United States of America were to collapse and be phased out by Americans to liquidate their debt, the continent itself probably would continue to prosper. Race is no longer a reason for war domestically. Foreign nations, however, may view the United States as a target for racial takeover. Mexico has a president who views the United States as a chicken dinner without a right to be free from foreign demographic, illegal alien invasion, or cross-border human trafficking. President Fox has a your house is my house disposition, even after NAFTA created a huge number of new economic opportunities for Mexico. Maybe the wealth of Mexico is being networked to trickle up as it has in the United States. Mexican poverty drives workers into the arms of predatory American cheap labor exploiters, undermining the value of domestic American labor. Obviously, the thousands of new technologies for bringing democide to exist with covert bio-war designs and so forth have been added to the post-industrial world, and that could end the United States overnight. It is environmental and financial reasons, though, that are the clearest present dangers, followed closely by low taxes on the rich and the great gap between poor, middle class, and the rich that makes freedom practically a patronized fact until the powers decide to finesse censorship or ruin the citizens deemed less than ideal to the security of the 5%, upper 5%. If the United States were to lead lunar development construction in an environmentally conservative way, support private enterprise moon manufacturing of structures and true spaceships, it might enjoy some kind of financial benefit within a half century. But that might also be of value to humanity troubled by global warming. High-tech solutions to new problems may arise from new fields and technologies presently unknown. The inner solar system might be developed for human habitation on planets, moons, and new forms of zero-G structures, with the Earth's moon being a primary base for the effort to invent new living and working spaces in a variety of decentralized approaches. The Earth, too, should experience U.S. leadership beginning in the United States with sustainable transportation and living infrastructure that works inexorably to conserve biota and sustain natural habitat health for the wild and for humanity.